Hakeem Jeffries.
The minority leader is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my good friend, the distinguished gentleman from Queens, the great state of New York, the once and future chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Mr. Meeks, for his leadership and for yielding. I rise today in strong support of the American people, in support of our men and women in uniform, in support of the United States Constitution, and in support of this War Powers Resolution. As we gather here today on the floor of the House of Representatives, there are mothers and fathers across this country who are in mourning, confronting the heartbreaking loss of their loved ones in uniform. My prayers are with the families of the 6 American service members who have been killed overseas in Donald Trump's war of choice. We're thankful for their heroism, their bravery, and their patriotism, and may their memories always be a blessing. Mr. Speaker, every member who serves in this chamber has sworn an oath of office. It seems as though many of my Republican colleagues have forgotten that. So let me remind you in part as to what it says. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help me God. In this remarkable country, the greatest nation in the history of the world, we don't swear an oath to a king, to a political party, or to a man bent on desecrating the Oval Office. In the Congress, in the courts, and in the military, we swear an oath to the United States Constitution. Mr. Speaker, when the framers drafted that glorious document, they feared the rise of a monarch, a demagogue, a tyrant. Today we are here on the House floor because the Constitution, the binding document that makes us all Americans, is being trampled on by a wannabe king. As members of the House of Representatives, the branch of government who the framers decided would be the closest to the American people, to reflect the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, the fears, the concerns, the anxieties, the life experiences, and the passions of the American people. We have a solemn obligation, Democrats and Republicans alike. We are all guardians of the American people and of the Constitution. We swore an oath that compels us to ensure that this president's modern-day injuries and abuses come to an end. We're at war now in the Middle East, spending billions of dollars to bomb Iran, when Republicans refuse to find a dime to make health care affordable for the American people, to make sure that everyday Americans can go see a doctor when they need one. This war has not been authorized by the people's representatives here in this glorious House. Article 1 of the Constitution explicitly provides Congress with the sole authority to declare war. There is nothing ambiguous about that. The framers made that decision because they were concerned about kings who throughout time plunged their people into unnecessary wars, impoverishing them or imperiling their lives by sending them off to a foreign conflict, often to pillage the resources of others for the benefit of a tyrant and his family. Sound familiar? That's why the power to declare war was given explicitly to the House and to the Senate, given to the people's representatives. Abraham Lincoln, as a member of this House in 1848, once profoundly observed, the provision of the Constitution giving the war-making power to Congress was dictated, as I understand it, by the following reasons. Kings had always been involving and impoverishing their people in wars, pretending generally, if not always, that the good of the people was the object. This our convention understood to be the most oppressive of all kingly oppressions, and they resolved to so frame the Constitution that no one man should hold the power of bringing this oppression upon us. Then Congressman Abraham Lincoln, Republican Congressman, 1848. That is why we have advanced this war powers resolution today. Donald Trump intentionally refused to get authorization from Congress for this war of choice, a war that has now exploded to more than 10 countries across the Middle East. The President has not even, Mr. Speaker, bothered to offer a coherent answer to the most basic questions that any commander-in-chief should address when making the solemn decision to take us to war. Why are we doing this? What are our objectives? How will this all end? Mr. Speaker, if this military action, this war, is so principled, why is the President unwilling or unable to make his case directly to the American people? If the tremendous cost to American taxpayers in terms of sacred human lives and our nation's precious resources is so justified, why does the President's rationale, why does the administration's rationale change every single day? Now, make no mistake, Iran is a bad actor. They must be confronted for their nuclear aspirations, painful human rights abuses, and repression of its own people, including the slaughter of thousands of civilians during the recent protests. It is the leading state sponsor of terrorism. It is a brutal regime that presents a serious threat to our allies in the Middle East, including Israel, Jordan, and the Gulf states. But the President has a responsibility to justify plunging America into another war that will cost more American lives and billions, if not trillions, in taxpayer resources. That's the President's obligation. And he has fallen woefully short of that responsibility. Now, the Trump administration has offered at least 5 different reasons to justify the war, all of which are built on deception and misdirection. First, Donald Trump claimed that the U.S. would attack Iran to protect the demonstrators who were risking their lives to demand democratic change. He even urged them weeks ago to rise up and seize state institutions. But as the regime cracked down brutally, killing tens of thousands of their own citizens, the President did nothing. Even as Donald Trump urged ordinary Iranians to take greater risks, there was never a viable military option for defending unarmed protesters against a brutal police state without sending hundreds of thousands of American troops into Iran. It was an empty pledge to the Iranian people that the current bombing campaign does nothing to undo. Second, Donald Trump and his advisors claim that Iran's unwillingness to negotiate away its nuclear program left no choice but for us to attack. Now, this is the very same person, Mr. Speaker, who told the country last summer that Iran's nuclear program was completely and totally obliterated. The same administration whose Department of Defense has said that the Iranian nuclear program was set back several years, and whose State Department said Iran isn't even enriching uranium today. Mr. Speaker, was the Commander-in-Chief confused in June, or is he confused right now? It was not long ago when America could be sure that we were preventing Iran from pursuing a nuclear weapon. The Iran nuclear agreement successfully did that until Donald Trump recklessly decided to pull the plug because he suffers from Obama derangement syndrome. The president has spent much of the past year trying and failing to restore the same negotiated safeguards he abandoned for partisan political reasons. And because of his failure to negotiate the guardrails that he destroyed, he has now taken us to war. Third, President Trump claims that Iran poses an imminent threat to the United States through its development of intercontinental ballistic missiles that could perhaps someday reach our shores. If Iran is actually on the verge of having that capability, the president should provide the evidence. But no such evidence has been presented to this Congress or to the American people. We can only assume that it does not exist. Fourth, Donald Trump said that he wanted to achieve regime change. Now, Donald Trump is an individual who promised Americans on the campaign trail that launching regime change wars in the Middle East has been one of the most foolish and costly things that the United States has ever done. Those are Donald Trump's words on the campaign trail. Candidate Trump said that if elected, he would never get our country into an endless regime war. President Trump has now done the exact opposite. Regime change wars are among the most expensive things that we can undertake. And yes, Secretary Hegseth, for decades, they have failed to accomplish their objective. Vietnam was a regime change war. Afghanistan was a regime change war. Iraq was a regime change war. And despite the incredible bravery of our heroes and patriots, because of failed policy decisions, they didn't work out. Even if the Iranian regime were to fall, we have no way to control what comes next, which most experts believe would be the Iranian Revolutionary Guard-led government rising up and being just as repressive and antagonistic as the current theocracy, and perhaps even more committed